back to Sports Roundtable, State News' sports podcast. I am your host, Jacob Smith, guested by Luke Joseph, but rest in peace to my co-host, Maddie Warden. She is currently covering MSU hockey in the NCAA tournament, which is starting tomorrow night in Toledo, so best of luck to the hockey team and her reporting, but definitely not the same look this week. But I'm glad to have Luke here today because if there's anybody I want to have a guest on, it's Luke to take over that, so... thank you for being here. And
Thanks
today we got, of course. Today we got a little bit of an exciting episode for you guys. We spent a lot of time in professional sports recently, so we're gonna bring it back to earth a little bit with some Michigan State. But Michigan State men's basketball just had a great weekend in their first two games in the NCAA March Madness tournament. They had an 87-62 win over 15 seed Bryant in the round of 64 and a 71-63 win over number 10 seed New Mexico in the round of 32. And they will take on Ole Miss, 6-seeded Ole Miss in the Sweet 16. So, Luke, I know we saw two games, two very high-intensity basketball games because it's March Madness. What did you kind of see from this weekend overall from Michigan State's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they played, pretty well. That Bryant win was a pretty convincing and dominant win, whereas New Mexico, we were down, I believe, by 10 at one point and down by 2 going into the second half. So we really had to fight for that one. But overall, it was really good to see. Cohen Carr, he's kind of like having his breakout tournament so far with these two games. Mm-hmm. That's been really impressive to see. They did have a little bit of a slow start against Bryant, but overall they were just, it seemed very much in control throughout the course of that game.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes that's going to happen because in March, every single team that's in the tournament, no matter what their seed is or where they came from in terms of conference, is playing for their lives, playing to survive, and at least see another game in the postseason. So totally expected that at least a 15 seed hung with Michigan State for a little bit. Bryant's a very good team.
Yeah.
And they won their conference for a reason. So, I mean, that goes into account. But kind of highlighting that game first, because, like you said, it was an interesting one. They give us, I don't want to say a scare because they kind of ran away with it the second half. But they proved they could hang around for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the Bryant's a very good team. And like you said, in March, anything can happen. I think last year, I think that a 2 seed lost to a 15 seed. I think definitely 2 years ago, we had Purdue lose to...
Purdue was actually a 1 seed that one against Fairleigh Dickinson, 16 seed. Princeton beat Arizona, which was a 15-2 in that same tournament. So it's been done before. St. Peter's, has gone to the Elite Eight. So
I mean, the last couple of years, they've just been massive upsets. But credit to Michigan State for playing so well, especially in the second half. There was a little bit of a scare but that was early on, so you just got to believe in Izzo to get these guys, to play a lot better in the second half, and they definitely did that.
Yeah, and I think that Izzo's coaching style really was evident in these first two games, especially against Bryant. I mean, I'm not going to harmonize on the depth that we've talked about with this team all year because we've said it a million times, but it's just really good how Tom Izzo can refresh and recycle. And I'm going to get to New Mexico in a little bit, too, with how many guys they played. It was the Bryant game, sorry. Bryant's starting 5 all played over 20 minutes, and 4 of those 5 players played 33 minutes or more during the entire game. The first guy off the bench played 11 minutes, and then nobody else saw more than 5. So just to go to show you that Tom Izzo in Michigan State was like, you may be able to run with us for a little bit, but once you get tired and once we start subbing all of our guys in, you're not going to be able to hang with us, and you're going to get tired, and we're just going to beat you that way, which I think is really crazy to see.
Yeah, I mean, on looking at the box score on ESPN, Bryant only had 8 bench points compared to MSU's trying to do quick math. I can't do math that quickly, but Cohen Carr had 18 coming off the bench, which was, very big. Even if you took Frankie Fiddler and Nick Sanders in that game, they tied the Bryant bench in points. So that was good to see.
Yeah.
But it was just overall a really good game to watch if you're a Michigan State fan. Jace Richardson had 15. Jeremy Fears put up 11. Akins had 11. Trey Holloman, being that sixth man, had 14. Cohen Carr had 18, which I believe was a career high. I don't think he's ever led the team in points so far throughout his career. So that was really, really good to see out of him. And, that could be kind of like a preview to his next 2 years to come, because he's so incredibly talented.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up Cohen Carr, because obviously with 18 points and 7 of 10 shooting and expanded 22 minutes, he played a lot more than he normally does.
Yeah.
We saw the flashes, and we know there's always been flashes with Cohen Carr. I mean, the same thing like we say with Michigan State's depth. We could talk to you all day about how high Cohen Carr can jump and all the dunks and blocks that he gets that are just highlight reel worthy. Mm-hmm. But we knew the biggest flaw in his game was not being able to have a consistent jump shot. He's hit a few threes this year, and his free throw percentage been night and day difference since about a third of the way through the season and compared to the first third of the season or whatever. So he's really improved in that sense too. Yeah. And I mean, scoring 18 points efficiently for the way that he plays, because he's going to catch the ball, he's going to rip it, he's going to attack you right at the rim. So like he's taking, I guess you could say, low percentage looks around the rim, because even though he's driving to the hoop, there's 2 or 3 guys in the paint at all times when he's driving up, and he just finds ways to either lay it up around him, get it, like he'll dunk on you if he wants. I mean, he's taken a few mid-ranges here and there, but I think it's really been impressive to see how much as he's developed. And like you said, he's got 2 more years left if he chooses to do that, see how he kind of develops, because I think he could be NBA ready if he develops a jump shot.
I mean, he went 7 of 10 from the field. He didn't take a single three-point shot, but he is not – three-point shooting or shooting in general has never been a strong suit. So it'll be good to see for him to kind of develop that next year, just being a little bit more confident in his shot. But, he went 4 or 5 from the free throw line, which was, pretty impressive, because he's not the best free throw shooter. But I think that the most underrated part of his game is his defensive ability.
Oh, my gosh.
People like to see all the block shots. He, kind of comes out of nowhere and just blocks a shot. But, he's a pretty good on-ball defender and a good off-ball defender. He's kind of being a little disruptive. And, he can stay with his man. And, I wouldn't, put him at the 5. But if you wanted to go with a small ball lineup, I think depending on how big the other team's center is, you could definitely put him in that small ball 5 to play a lot faster.
Yeah, most definitely. And Tom Izzo's done that this year, and not playing him on a center, but he's played Cohen Carr defensively on other 3 or 4s just because he can do that, and because his vertical is so high, he can contest shots, he can block shots at a very high level. I mean, he's 6'5". Which, I mean, it's the same height as me, so like it feels like it's the tallest. I feel like he's the tallest 6'5" guy I've ever seen in my life. But to that point, like, his height isn't like crazy high for a forward, even guard position. So just seeing him be able to contend and really stretch the floor defensively with some of the guys that he lines up against on the other side of the ball is really fascinating to see. And like we said, his development and his contribution to this game specifically, but also this first few games of the tournament has really been insane. And I mean, besides him, the rest of the guys that have been helping us all year and really showing that veteran leadership helped us out in this game as well. I mean, we had 5 scorers in double figures during this first round game against Bryant with Jace, Fears, Akins, Carr, and Trey Holloman. So it just shows you that there's guys that can score. I know the three-pointing is what it is, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. But there's guys are getting to the rim, guys are getting good looks, good shots. Trey Holloman's 3 has really come along a long way. Even though they had a slow start, they really finished strong. And I mean, this was a 5-point game at halftime, 33-28, and then MSU outscored Bryant by 20 in the second half, with 54 total points.
They went 15-21 from the free throw line, 10-26 from the 3-point line, which I don't remember the last time MSU took that many 3-point shots. But which I think is kind of a rarity for them to kind of shoot that much in terms of threes. I could be wrong on that. But, they have not been a good 3-point shooting team all year. They've been, I believe, dead last in the Big Ten at just over 31%. But, I think an impressive thing is that they're getting to the free throw line a lot. 15 of 21, only 71% from the line, which is good. But Jeremy Fears he's been very aggressive, which I think has been very, very, very positive. He went 6 of 8 from the line, which is good. And then Trey Holloman went 2 of 2. Jace got to the line. Jaden Akins got to the line. Cohen Carr went 4 of 5 from the line. So, the fact that they're able to get to the free throw line, get people into foul trouble, which is something that I think that previous Spartan teams haven't really been good at doing, is getting to the free throw line. So the fact that they are getting to the free throw line, I think that's going to be great down the stretch.
I agree too, because they're very confident.
If you can get, like let's say they're playing Auburn in the Elite Eight, or I guess for this example, they're playing against Ole Miss on Friday. If you can get their top big man into foul trouble, that's going to hurt Ole Miss's paint protection, and then they're not going to have a big man to feed the ball to. So it's just the fact that they are getting to the free throw line and getting Ole Miss or Bryant and New Mexico into foul trouble is very good for games down the stretch.
Yeah, and I really agree with you, because that's an underrated part of basketball, I feel like, is just being able to draw contact, also force it, and then translate that into causing havoc on the defensive side of the ball, which is really Michigan State's identity this year. And I mean, Jeremy Fears, if you haven't watched him get to the free throw line, you're kind of missing some kind of art, because I know there's all the talk of foul baiting in basketball and really kind of playing to your advantage when it comes to drawing calls. Jeremy Fears arguably does that, but he does it in a way where it shows you he's not afraid. He will play with confidence. His jump shot has also come along more recently because he's been able to play with confidence, and he knows that he can mess with anybody, get in anybody's head, get them to get in a little bit of foul trouble, and then obviously, like you said, that's going to help Michigan State down the line.
I mean, him and Trey are probably the biggest trash talkers on this team, I would say. I don't like using that word, but they're just so energetic, and they look like they want it. You know what I mean? They're very aggressive. They're kind of in your face, let's go. I want to go up against you type of deal. They're not scared of this moment. Trey Holloman, he'll hit a 3 and he'll let you know about it. Now, Izzo might not like that. He didn't really like that on senior night when he got into the Michigan players' faces. But I don't think he really cares. I think he's going to get in your face and be unapologetic about it, which I think is, good to see from a Michigan State Spartan.
Most definitely, because the definition of being a Spartan is being a Spartan dog, like all Michigan State, Tom Izzo always says, and I think that's the definition of it, is not backing down against anybody, wanting to take on who's in front of you. It doesn't matter if it's a 15 seed or it's going to be Auburn potentially in the Elite Eight. That's just what happens, and especially because Jeremy Fears, he's technically still a freshman. I know he played a little bit on a small sample size last year before it happened to him, but he's still a freshman.
Yeah.
Trey Holloman didn't get a lot of minutes his freshman year. He got an increased workload last year where he showed flashes of what he can do this year, and then this year he's really kind of stepped up. So this is his first year. He's not even a starter either.
I mean, he started in the beginning of the year, but
then he got his place second, yes.
Yeah, but he's totally embraced that role.
100%.
He's been, that Energizer Bunny. You know what I mean? It's if he was put on any other team, I believe he would be a starter.
Oh,
but it's the fact that he, Izzo went up to him and was just look, we're going to put in, Jace Richardson in the starting lineup. You're going to come off the bench. We want you to be that, Energizer Bunny, that spark plug. And he's totally embraced that role, which I think is really good. And it kind of speaks to the chemistry of this team. It's we understand the assignment. We want to win. We want to win a national championship. I don't care if I'm starting. I don't care if I'm getting 2 minutes off the bench. I don't care if I'm getting 20 minutes off the bench.
Yeah.
I want to win.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do my part in, helping this team to win.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything more impressive than that, just for a junior to really take that upon himself and realize that he got his place taken by a freshman in a sense, but also he's looking at it in a more mature way where he's I can be that guy, first guy off the bench in that second unit, really set the tone for the rest of the guys around me. And Michigan State's second unit is just as good as some other teams in the country's first unit. So for him being able to lead that, it's a good sign.
And I mean, in this day and age of basketball, I think that the six man is kind of coming back to life. You know what I mean? Like everybody's kind of focused on, it's like, oh, you're coming off the bench. You're not as good to be a starter, but it's like that's not the case like at all. If you look in the pros, like Naz Reid of the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think he would probably be a starter on any other team in basketball, but he's coming off the bench and he's playing pretty dang well, and he's going to get paid a lot of money. Jamal Crawford, if you know your basketball, he's the sixth man of the year, it seemed like every other year, and he's a really good player.
Yeah.
So I think that just seeing Trey Hallman come off the bench being that sixth man, I think that's coming back.
Yeah.
It's just becoming more of an important role.
Yeah, especially in the new revolutionized college basketball where there's transfers and anything can kind of happen.
Yeah.
Trey Hallman wanted to stick around. He didn't care what his role was at Michigan State. He wanted to be here, and that's a big testament to why this team has had so much success and what they did against Bryant in the first round.
Yeah.
I also want to talk a little bit about the New Mexico game because that was also an interesting game for a very good portion of it. We mentioned the 71-63 final score, but that game was a lot closer than that final score, I think, and it was a lot closer than Michigan State maybe had hoped. But credit to New Mexico. They came in with a great game plan. I mean, Rick Pitino's son coached up a really good game plan, so I'll give him credit, and that was a good game plan by New Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, Rick Pitino's son, being the son of Rick Pitino, I think you're going to be a really good coach, and he obviously proved it. I think he just got a new job
at Xavier.
At Xavier, yeah. So
he's conference as his dad.
I think that's. I'll have to check my history on this, but I think that's the first time that the Big East or any Power 5 conference has seen a father-son, coaching, matchup.
Yeah, doesn't happen every day.
It doesn't happen every day. But credit to Richard Pitino. I mean, he's a dang good coach. Yeah. I think he's one of the more underrated coaches in college basketball. So heading into that matchup, it was definitely going to be a tough one. New Mexico was up, I believe, 24-14 at one point.
Yeah.
So it was definitely looking like New Mexico. It's like, oh, they could beat, they can win.
Yeah, because the way that game started, it felt like everything was falling for him, and wouldn't give him credit. But most of the time, and when you're, especially in college basketball, once a team comes out really, really hot like that, they're eventually going to cool off. So Michigan State made adjustments and then really kind of locked it down a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then forced New Mexico to kind of make some more mistakes. But I do want to shout out New Mexico's game plan because I think this displayed one of Michigan State's potential weaknesses going forward, especially with Ole Miss coming up, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But New Mexico hedged a lot in ball screens, which I think was a really good strategy. They let us get rebounds, and they kind of didn't contest for as many of them as other teams do. Instead, they just sprinted right back, and they got straight into their defensive set in the half court. And I think that was good for Mexico and other teams game planning against us, because whenever Jeremy Fears or whoever was handling the ball, Trey Hallman coming off a ball screen, their big guy would follow him all the way out, even if it was half court. And then we couldn't get that over the top pass. I think that was a really good game plan. Just wanted to kind of make that known because it could be a potential weakness for MSU, because we know their transition game is one of the best in the country, and that's kind of what Tom Izzo's coaching style has always lived on. But forcing Michigan State to play in the half-court offense for most of the game might be a little bit of a weakness for Michigan State, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State loves to, play fast. They don't really like to play in that half-court setting. So, it's going to – I think that's something that Ole Miss or potentially Michigan or Auburn, can take from, watching that New Mexico tape. The three-point shooting was pretty bad. Only went 4 of 15 from beyond the arc. Jace Richardson had probably his worst game being a starter. Went 0 of 5 from the three-point line, only 1 of 10 from the field. He actually didn't get his first field goal until under a minute left in the game.
But to go along with that,
yeah.
Even though he shot 1 of 10 the whole game, he came back and made one of the most clutch plays for the entire game. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying to put put like a damper on things or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like,
They overcame that.
yeah, I mean, having one of your best players or best scorers, go 0 of 9 from the field for most of the game and still being able to come out with a win was pretty impressive. Jaden Akins played really well. Trey Holloman played really well. Cohen Carr played really well. He only had 8 points, but he was really aggressive and played really well on defense. Frankie Fiddler had a couple clutch baskets. And then Carson Cooper, Jackson Kohler, and Zapala, they all played really well. Just being that anchor down low. And then Jeremy Fears, he got to the line again 8 times. So it's
That's
just
a guard.
yeah, exact. I mean, it's just like he knows how to get to the free throw line. I think that's something that as I mentioned before, we just haven't really had a whole lot of just our guards getting to the free throw line, and it's just really good to see that. We went 19 to 28 from the free throw line. Obviously, not as good shooting percentage wise. But the fact that they are getting, players into foul trouble, I think that's going to go a long way.
Yeah, and I know the shooting is what it was this game, and things didn't really click for us early. But I think the thing for this Michigan State team is they find another way to win. I feel like each game, and whether that's being they shoot better threes than the other team they played, or they dominate the free throw line, which they did against New Mexico, or they force more turnovers, or they lock down on defense, get more blocks and whatever and stuff like that. They find a new way to win every time, I feel like. And you made a few good points. I kind of want to say what stood out to me a little bit. I mean, Cohen Carr only had 8 points. That's what the box score is going to show you. But this was an extended version of what he did against Bryant. Yeah. He was all over the glass once again, blocking shots, crashing offensive rebounds, really making it tough for New Mexico to get out and run like they wanted to as well, because they wanted to push the pace. He started the second half as well and had 25 minutes, which is 2 above the 23 that he had against Bryant. So he's really coming to his own. And then you have Jace Richardson. I know we mentioned the shooting percentages, but again, if you just look at the box score, you wouldn't know that he hit that and one to really ignite the dagger. That pretty much called the game. And he, even though he shot 1 of 10 from the field, he was 4 of 4 on free throws.
Yeah.
So, and all 4 of them were in the clutch.
Yeah.
So going and looking at that point too.
Scared of that big moment.
Oh no, and he's a freshman, so like we're gonna say that all the time because that's what it is. Like he's really stepping up, but to do that at 18, 19 years old, like on the biggest stage of the college basketball season, when things aren't going your way the entire night, come back and do that. I mean, I don't really think there's that much more impressive for his age and his like the type of guy he is. It just shows his leadership already. It shows his potential at the next level. I think this game really displayed a lot of what this team can be at its peak. I know everything has to go right, but that was just a fun game.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of, even in this game where he didn't have the greatest, scoring game, you're seeing a lot of the things that make him such an intriguing prospect. Seeing things that scouts for NBA teams, they're like, okay, this guy could be a potential lottery pick. Like, you're kind of seeing that, he's moving without the basketball. He's playing really good off-ball and on-ball defense, just being able to stay with his man, not getting lost, watching the guy with the ball versus his own man, making sure that he's going after loose balls and all that stuff, being aggressive. It's not like he didn't look like he was like, getting upset with himself that he was at that point in time 0 of 9 from the field. But Izzo, he was like, hey, look, you got to keep a level head. I know you're not doing all that well, for us scoring, but your time will come. And sure enough, his time came.
I mean, unreal.
Yeah.
It's so cool to watch. And we've said about his age and all that stuff kind of combined with it. But it really was one of the most impressive storylines, I think, of that entire game and that night as well. But two very, very dominating. I know the score lines won't say it, but 2 very dominating performances by Michigan State, I feel like. And they overcame adversity, which I think they needed to do because it's only going to get hard from here. They played 2 double-digit seeds already. So to be able to face a little bit of adversity and kind of ramp yourself up before you got a big game like we're going to talk about right now against Ole Miss on Friday, I mean, I think that's only going to help them because Ole Miss is the best team they're going to face so far. Really, really good team. They like to run a lot, but they also will let up a lot of opponent threes, not like they'll say, here, you can shoot it, but that's just how their game plan kind of works. They tend to give up that three ball, especially when they played in the SEC, when a lot of teams can shoot. Yeah. So that's kind of how they play, and it should be interesting.
If Michigan State was to have an amazing 3-point game, I think that this would be the game to do it. Like if, like you said, they do let up a lot of threes, you got to be able to hit those if they're letting you, if they're not playing good defense on the perimeter, you got to be able to hit those threes. Make them regret, playing such poor defense.
I know. We really got to see it because they're shooting 32.6% from three in the first two games Michigan State is that they played in this tournament. That's up from about like 1% from the 31%. So really I know it's a small sample size, but we have not really seen a difference so far. They shot about 38.5% against Bryant, but I mean, that's probably about as like your ceiling that you're going to get for this Michigan State team. So if Ole Miss is going to allow you to get some of those good looks that you want, you better hit them, like you said. That can definitely be a difference maker. I mean, if we're on Friday night and they start to go in, like I said, we can beat you different ways. So maybe that's how we beat you. But I think we'll definitely have to adjust a little bit.
I mean, Ole Miss is not a very big. They're kind of sort of, I would say, kind of like MSU. Like they're not the biggest team. We have Carson Cooper and Zapala who are kind of taller guys. But I'm trying to look here. Like Jimin Brakefield of Ole Miss is only a 6'8". Malik Dia is 6'9". Like those are two of their top three scorers. Mikhail Brown Jones, 6'8". Not a lot of tall guys for Ole Miss, but that just means that they're gonna, like you said, they're going to want to run.
They like to run.
So I think it's going to be a little bit challenging for, Cooper and Kohler and Zapala to kind of keep up with those guys. So I think that Izzo, not to say that he's going to bench them or anything like that, but I think that this could be another game where Cohen Carr gets a lot of minutes, because he's able to keep up with those guys and he's able to, play really good defense on those guys.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I feel like this is the best scenario for him to really excel at. Once again, just because he can run, he's very athletic. We've seen it kind of displayed so far in the tournament. I mean, this is going to be a Michigan State crack at SEC basketball, which is a lot different from how the Big Ten plays sometimes. SEC basketball is very fast, like we said. They like to shoot a lot of threes. Ole Miss is scrappy. They forced 290 steals this year. For reference, Michigan State's forced 181. So Ole Miss is very good at making opponents turn the ball over. And to that point, Michigan State's really kind of struggled to generate turnovers in these first two games. That's the reason that Bryant hung with Michigan State in the first half and New Mexico hung with them for most of the game, is because Michigan State could not force them to turn the ball over, and then they couldn't create points off of that. So they had to get stops and put together some buckets, which they're not the best at if they can't run. So that's just how it could play sometimes.
I mean, but at the same time, Ole Miss, they have had their problems with turnovers. They have 294 turnovers committed this year. So they're definitely going to have to take advantage of that. We obviously, you pointed out, couldn't really make Bryant or New Mexico turn the ball over. I think that you got to adjust that defensive game plan. Get Ole Miss to turn the ball over, but I think that overall Ole Miss is a very, very good team. They're very scrappy. They love to run. It's going to be an amazing matchup to watch.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen anything kind of like this this season. I know we played some high-powering offenses, but this is really going to be a true test because Ole Miss has competed with some of the best teams in the country. They've had a nightmare of a schedule playing teams like Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, Texas A&M all year in the SEC. So they definitely got their test, but it is going to be a very interesting matchup to watch. I could see it going either way as much as we've talked about Michigan State this entire year. This game is probably a little bit more closer to 50-50 than it is like 75-25 in favor of MSU. So should definitely be a really interesting one to watch. But Michigan State's definitely proven they belong here, got into the Sweet 16. I believe that's their 16th Sweet 16 or 16th and 17th Sweet 16.
I think 16th.
Yes. In time as his tenure. So just proves we could be in here before. See if we can take that next step in the coming days as they take on Ole Miss on Friday. Should be very exciting. Moving on to another team that is also in the NCAA tournament. We touched on it a little bit with Maddie's absence, and I know that Maddie being absent also means that me and Luke are not the most extensive and highly knowledgeable hockey fans, but
I definitely am not, but I'll try my best.
yeah, we're going to be able to hold our own as much as we can here, but we wanted to highlight Michigan State hockey because they are in the NCAA tournament. They earned a #1 overall seed in this tournament as well, which was the 2nd seed overall. They had a great year. Michigan State hockey did. They won the Big Ten tournament this past weekend against Ohio State. 4-3 victory in overtime where Isaac Howard had the game winner. So the energy's high. They're getting a little bit back together because they struggled a little bit towards the back end of the regular season. They dropped a game at Penn State and tied them as well, which is kind of like a momentum killer. We've mentioned the fact that Red Savage is out for the year, their captain. So things kind of took a little bit of an unexpected turn for Michigan State this year, but I think they've responded very well. So they will be facing Cornell University in the first round. Cornell finished 18-10-6, but they won their Eastern College Athletic Conference this season, which secured them an automatic bid in the NCAA tournament. But this is also going to be fun for Michigan State.
I mean, the Cornell's a good team. They won their conference, so obviously they're going to be it's going to be a tough match. Hopefully that MSU pulls out with the victory. But that if they were to beat Cornell, they would potentially play Ohio State, which we just beat them. To secure the Big Ten tournament championship. So I think that if that was to happen, Ohio State would definitely want some revenge for unfortunately losing.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me a little bit of a Michigan Elite Eight kind of thing for, like, if you're not aware that in the men's basketball NCAA tournament, Michigan plays Auburn in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, that's right.
And then if Michigan were to beat Auburn and Michigan State was to beat Ole Miss this weekend, Michigan and Michigan State would face in the Elite Eight of the NCAA tournament. So to my point, this kind of reminds me of that a little bit, just because like it's hard to beat a team so many times in a season. Michigan State won the season series against Ohio State 4-1, including that win this past weekend. So they've got their number already. But like we said, it's so hard to beat a team 4 times, maybe 5, and especially in hockey when there's series. So that would definitely be interesting. Like, kind of just have to see how it goes. But
I mean, when you play each other so many times, you have all that tape. You kind of know what to expect from that team. That's why I'm kind of hoping that Auburn wins against Michigan. Even though Auburn is a higher seed, because it's just that the fact that there is that familiarity with Michigan, and there's the familiarity with Ohio State. They've seen us play. They're gonna wanna just run us down on the rink. It's gonna be a very interesting matchup, and that would be the definition of a 50-50 matchup. Even though we've won most of the games, it's still, it's a one and done. It's a one and done tournament. If you lose, you're out. So anything can happen.
I think that's why it's so interesting too, is because the entire year, all these teams are used to playing series, and maybe if you can't beat a team on the first night you play them, you can bounce back and get another crack at them the next time. But like you said, this is one and done. It's win or go home. So the stakes are a lot higher. The other team that Michigan State has the possibility to face would be Boston University if they were to beat Ohio State. But Michigan State's side of the bracket is pretty favorable, I think, for them. In the top half of the bracket, the 4 teams that are in their other region that they would have to potentially face is number 3 seeded Maine, Penn State, UConn, and Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac has experience winning the tournament recently. I think they won it in 2023. UConn, I'm not too familiar about. Penn State had a losing record at some point this season, really got hot at the right time, snuck their way into the tournament, and Maine is a very, very solid team, incredibly deserving of their 3 seed. So if Michigan State is able to get past their little pad, I think they have a really good run at making it to at least the semifinals, if not the championship in this Frozen Four tournament. But it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how this all plays out because, like you said, the familiar matchups, beating opponents more than you have to is always a tough feat. But it definitely should be interesting to see how Michigan State go. And once we get Maddie back, I promise you we'll go a little bit more into depth about this. But we just wanted to give a little bit of a preview just because Michigan State plays tomorrow night at 5:30. So.
I mean, shout out to the entire state of Michigan. You know, you got Michigan State and Michigan in men's basketball, Michigan State and Western Michigan in hockey. You know, I think the entire state of Michigan is definitely, you know, smiling today.
Yeah, it's represented well. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But like we said, we'll touch on that more when we get more results in the tournament, just because we've talked about hockey kind of closing the season on past episodes. And with the tournament starting tomorrow, we want to see how it goes a little bit. But
once we get Maddie back, we'll have a lot more in-depth coverage.
She is kind of our hidden gem there when it comes to hockey. But to wrap it up today, in spirit, just a little quick, like, few-minute segment, in spirit of baseball being back and the MLB starting tomorrow. Opening day is tomorrow in the MLB, which just got me very excited. I almost wore my Tiger shirt, but I'm saving it for tomorrow. We have a whole brand new season, 162 games to play. Luke, I know baseball is also not your entirely strong suit.
I know, I'm kind of struggling with finding a third sport, but you know, I know a little bit about baseball. I know that you know, the Phillies are going to be really good. The Dodgers are. They pretty much get everybody. There's, I mean, if there's like another prospect, they're just surely gonna pay him $100 million.
A foreign prospect. They seem to find all the Japanese players as well.
Pretty much.
So I mean, that's kind of what you get, and no salary cap, so you're able to kind of buy.
You got a stronghold on the best international market. I mean, of course, you're gonna be really good.
Yes.
And then, you know, the Mets, they just got Juan Soto and Pete Alonso back, so I think that's going to be this is going to be a very interesting season. Yeah,
we had those three teams kind of written down as our potential favorites to win the World Series this year. I mean, the Dodgers, for obvious reasons, they just won it last year, reigning champs. They already are 2-0 to start the season because they played in the Japan Series against the Chicago Cubs and took them down in both games. So it just looks very evident. Like, all signs are pointing towards the Dodgers repeating, but we've seen in past postseasons that the Dodgers can't always get over that hump. They have a really great regular season sometimes, kind of hit a wall, run into an unexpected foe in the playoffs, and then go home earlier than they should have. So I feel like that's one of the Dodgers' kind of drawbacks, but they also have 2 World Series in this decade, so they're totally used to winning. I mean, it's kind of interesting, like the MLB season. It's kind of almost like March Madness in a way, is that way it's kind of based on momentum, it feels like. Not this past postseason, but, you know, the last few. The Phillies, I believe they were a 6 seed. It was a 6 seed.
When they went to the World Series against the Astros. And then the year after, there was the Rangers and the Diamondbacks.
And nobody saw that one coming.
Nobody saw that one coming. So I think it's just kind of all about momentum. You know, so I think people are going to say that it's, you know, the Dodgers, Phillies, Yankees, or Mets. But to be honest, I don't think we're going to have a definitive answer until September. Yeah. You know, I think that a lot can happen in a 162 game, you know, season.
Yeah,
so.
It's such a big sample size, and I like your point, and I'm not trying to shamelessly plug the Tigers here, but just for example, the Detroit Tigers last year had like a 2% chance to make the playoffs in mid-August, and then they went on a run where they won plenty of games and got a wild card spot. Not only did they get a wild card spot, they won a series against the Astros in the wild card, and then were 1 win away from the championship series while being able to barely score over 3 runs a game. So baseball is a game of pretty much that anything can happen.
Just momentum.
Exactly, like you said, momentum. So I think even though the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Mets, even like the Braves kind of hanging in that conversation are like your heavy hitters, there's plenty of potential dark horse contenders to look out for too, which I also have written down a little bit here. But some teams that kind of fall into that category, I mean, the Rangers are World Series champions in 2023, so they have experience. They had a disappointing year last year, missing the playoffs, but also lots of injuries. They get Jacob deGrom back as well this year, which should help the rotation. The Diamondbacks were in that World Series, like we said, so they have plenty of potential. They missed the postseason by 1 game last year, or it was one or a few games. So they'll be right back in that conversation, especially because they play in a tough division with the Padres and Dodgers also there. The Red Sox really improved this offseason because they brought in Alex Bregman, one of the big marquee free agent signings. They just announced today that he's going to play third base while Rafael Devers DHs. So for baseball fans, that's a pretty significant development there for that team. but they also brought in a lot of arms, Garrett Crochet being one of them. They have a very strong rotation as well. And even the Orioles, I mean, they're a very young team, but they've proven they can make the playoffs with a young team. Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson and company proved they belong. And Jackson Halliday, if he can develop, I know he struggled a little bit when he got called up. But all four of those teams really have a chance to kind of make a run too.
I mean, I kind of think of the Orioles as like that World Series Cubs team back in 2016. You know, they kind of grew together.
Yeah.
You know, they built through that farm system. Obviously, they got that elite pitcher. Why am I blanking on his name? But
the Orioles pitcher.
Yeah.
I gotta look it up too.
Why am I'm blanking on his
I'll
name.
look it up while you keep talking.
I know that he's a very good pitcher.
I believe is it Corbin Burns?
Corbin Burns.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be their ace. And the Cubs, when they won that World Series, they picked up at the time John Lester, and which helped them win that World Series. But the Orioles, I think that building through that farm system, I don't know if they're going to win it. But, like I said before, once it gets to September, I think we're going to have a clear answer. But I think the Orioles are going to be a fun team to watch just because of that youth and, that kind of I don't want to say unpredictability, but the fact that they are young and people don't really know what to kind of expect from them. I think they're going to be a team that people are going to be scared to play.
Yeah.
When it gets close to postseason.
Yeah, and I really like your Chicago Cubs comparison. I'm going to compare it across sports just real quickly. I think they remind me a little bit of the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA. Obviously, because of their youth, that's the biggest thing, and they have that star. Like Gunnar Henderson is kind of that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a sense, and Adley Rutschman's kind of like their Chet Holmgren, or Jalen Williams, if you will. But both these teams have proved they can compete for the postseason. The Orioles made it last year. Disappointing exit. The Thunder had a 1 seed last year and only got to the second round. So they've proven they can contend in the regular season, but it's about getting over that hump. The Thunder are on pace for 65 wins this year, so they're going to get another crack at it. And the Orioles, I think, have another shot to really make the postseason, but also kind of get over that hump because I feel like with the core they have, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
And they're definitely one of my favorite teams they kind of look out for on the horizon this year because I think once they finally piece it all together and realize the foundation that they have and kind of get all those guys comfortable playing together, because they still have an elite farm system, even with all the guys they called up, they can definitely be really dangerous as well.
I mean, Dodgers don't have an unlimited amount of money. I know it seems like
it does definitely seem like it.
They basically give Shohei Ohtani almost $1 billion, but I think that the Orioles and I think the Diamondbacks are gonna surprise people. I think my hot take is that the Diamondbacks are going to be better than the Mets this year.
I really like that because the Mets have star power.
The Mets do have star power, but I love Corbin Carroll for the Diamondbacks. My brother who goes to Arizona State. Shout out to Jake. He loves Corbin Carroll a lot. I think he could contend for being an MVP
I was hoping
candidate.
you'd say that because I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah. I think he's gonna have his kind of breakout season. Everybody's kind of talking about the Dodgers and the Phillies, Bryce Harper and Shohei, but I think Corbin Carroll, I think he's gonna surprise some people.
Yeah, and below the surface, there's a lot of good players and elite players in this league just beyond what the media and the big markets kind of tell you, because I know it seems like in baseball the big markets are the only ones that can compete, but we just saw the Rangers kind of in the peak of this market fiasco, whatever, salary cap argument, just win a World Series a few years ago. So it can happen, but like we're saying, this is shaping up to be an interesting season because it is the Dodgers repeat to lose kind of. They're the favorites out right now, but kind of how that develops and changes a little bit during the season will definitely be something to look out for. But that's pretty much going to do it here for this episode of Sports Roundtable. Luke, it's been a pleasure having you on and in Maddie's place. And we will definitely zone in more on what we know with hockey later on in the next episode. But thank you for joining. We appreciate you guys tuning in as always, and we will see you guys next week.
See ya.